Eventually, if you spend enough time conducting international trade deals over the internet, you are going to run into someone who spends an inordinate amount of time telling you how long they have been doing this sort of transaction that you are trying to conduct with them, and what their client will not accept. This is an immediate red flag for someone that you should dump right after making a requisite warning, letting them know that in the real world, it is not the buyer that necessarily makes the rules, and certainly not the mandate, or someone masquerading as a mandate. Now, I mentioned this before in an earlier video, but I want to reiterate something. As soon as you start talking to this particular individual, and they start giving you the business about what they're going to do and how they're going to do it, and what they are not going to accept, it's time to move on. Too often, you have people who just want to engage in pissing contests over the internet because they can't do so in their real lives in person every day. They think that you're going to give them an opportunity to satisfy their egos at your expense. The solution is to deal with these people so that they immediately know what the situation is. Pre-qualify these people, set up the rules right at the beginning, tell them exactly what they can expect and what will be expected of them. If the broker has any brains at all, they will listen to you carefully and come to realize quickly that they have in fact come to the right place. Too often, the opposite is the case, and this usually means that the person you're talking to either is not serious, does not know what they are doing, or does not have a client that they feel they can work with and receive a commission from. Too often, the would-be broker is simply not aware of the facts regarding the commissions and how they are paid by the seller. This is done after the buyer pays for the product, paying the seller, and then the paymaster, in most cases, turns around and pays the commissions to the intermediaries. Too many intermediaries make the mistake of talking too much and asking too few questions. Do not hesitate to remind these individuals that your time is as valuable as any other person's. Make sure that this would-be dominant figure knows up front by stating what the terms of the transaction will be today and in the future, and leave them to mull over the question as to whether or not they want to move forward themselves. For the love of God, do not chase people, and do not beg them to believe you when you are telling them the truth. Doing so is a recipe for disaster and a waste of time. And as I said earlier, your time is valuable. Your time is the most valuable commodity you will ever have. Next, time management. Time management is just as important as being able to recognize when you should drop an individual from your itinerary or not. First, set some goals for yourself, preferably one goal. Start with one thing that you want to promote, the one thing that you want to sell, or the one thing you wish to buy, and focus your attention on this. Many people fail to prioritize wisely in international trade brokering, and as a result, they're usually going in 4 directions at once. You must resist the temptation to try and close multiple deals. If you have a seller of a given product and you're trying to promote that product, stick to the promotion of the product and nothing else. Do not try to be all over the table. This is a sign of greed and, frankly, of laziness. Prioritize finding a suitable buyer for your product, even if you have to post the same ad every few days or every few weeks to the same platforms until you get the results that you are looking for. In some cases, it's a good idea to set a time limit for how much effort you intend to put into one transaction. If you're providing a serious product, you may want to devote all of your time to doing the search for suitable buyers. If this is a secondary activity, like trying to help someone else find an investment partner, for example, then you should devote only the amount of time necessary to getting the results that you need. Do not let trying to help someone else necessarily cripple your own ventures. Put yourself first. And when I say this, I don't mean be selfish or greedy, but I mean devote the necessary time to your ventures and the results that you seek for those ventures. Only then will you have the resources, once you're successful, to spend more time genuinely helping others. Organization. This is really important. Get and remain organized. This is very important. And when I say get organized, I mean if you're working on a computer desktop, create real files and folders and subfolders and subcategories on the desktop. I can't tell you how many times I've looked over someone's shoulder at an office and saw their desktop screen filled with hundreds and hundreds of small files. No folders to organize these files, just a mess of files, and you can pretty much guarantee that their bedrooms and the rest of their life probably looks the same. Getting organized, for example, just having folders for sellers, folders for buyers, and subfolders for different types of buyers will help you find information and be more productive in the long run. It's a simple thing, but it is the simple things that will make the difference in the long run between someone who is successful and someone who is just making busy work. Remove all non-essential tasks. This feeds into getting organized. Spend as few idle hours as possible watching YouTube videos. If you're going to be successful, working from home, part-time or full-time, as an internet trade broker, you're going to have to devote a great deal of time and effort into finding the right buyers for your products. Take the time to streamline your life, your desktop, your mode of behavior when dealing with prospective buyers. It all comes together in the end. Create a persona. Now, I have addressed this in an earlier video that I did some years ago on creating a business persona, but many people do not take the time to do this. When I say persona, I mean a digital representative of who you are and what you represent. It can take the form of a website, or as is in many cases, a LinkedIn or other type of social media profile. With regard to a LinkedIn profile, you should do all that you can to make people know that you're serious. Too many LinkedIn profiles, for example, simply don't have a banner that is unique to the individual or even a photo showing who the person is. If you have a LinkedIn profile, for example, or a YouTube profile or some other type of social media platform profile, the photo must be professional looking. If it's not flattering, then you need to make a change. I know a lot of people think it's cute, but a profile photo of a cat or a half visible picture of your face or just one eye looks cute, but actually it says all the wrong things about who you are or the messages that you're trying to convey. It's time for you to take a very nice photo of yourself and post it. If your profile has a space for some kind of artwork or banner or message and yours is blank, take the time to craft something that can go into that space. And if you're not a computer savvy person, you don't know which end of Photoshop is up, it's time for you to hire someone on Fiverr.com or some other type of work sharing platform to make a nice banner or something that you can put up to give people a clear indication of who you are and what you represent. Humans are visual creatures, and when you promote yourself on a media platform, you are telling the world who you are and what you can do. Many's the time you only get one opportunity to make a good impression. When it comes to profiles, too many people ignore just how important it is to create a persona that projects the image of someone who is serious about what they are dealing with. As an example, just go to a social media profile now and look at it. Does it make you want to contact the person who's listed there? Does the image they use conform to your idea of what their business is all about? Do they look serious, or do they look like they're just out to have some fun? Is it clear by the image or images you see what business they're really in? Does their image project a sense of success and confidence, gravitas, or business acumen? These are just a few things to consider when considering what kind of image to use on your media profiles. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. This is true. It's also worth $1 million in commission. Just putting up a decent photograph of yourself, dressed professionally, along with some kind of image which lends itself to an air of professionalism, will put you miles ahead of the competition. Apps and programs. It's a good idea to use as many apps and tools as possible, all of them organized around you generating results that you are looking for. Whether it's LinkedIn on your phone or WhatsApp on your phone or desktop or as a plugin on your browser or any number of apps like Instagram, it's a good idea to be creative with your ideas about which platforms to use and how to use them. I've used many platforms over the years, and many of them I've withdrawn from because they proved to be useless. There is no shame in closing down your Facebook account or some other social media profile if it does not serve your purpose. It is merely a waste of time and a mere indulgence if you continue to use it without generating any kind of positive results. Time management. Be very careful who you spend your time with. This is very important because a man is the sum of the people who he keeps company with. You cannot fly with the eagles if you are hanging around with the turkeys. Just because someone is your friend on the internet, or because you've known them for a long time, does not mean you owe them anything if they waste your time or your energy. I am not saying that you should throw people under the proverbial bus, but I am saying that you should devote less time to people who cannot help you achieve your goals and more time to that handful of people, and it usually will come down to just a handful of people who can really help you, people who you can really rely on. Remember, letting go is just as important as holding on at times. In my experience, the same people who might bring you the deal of a lifetime might also be the instrument of the deal's destruction. Once these people have proven themselves to be a liability, you know what you must do. You have to decide what's more important, making friends with everyone or achieving your goals. In an earlier video, I mentioned doing your homework with regard to finding out whether or not people are for real or not. Just about anybody who approaches you can be checked out or tracked online in various ways, especially if the claims they make sound too good to be true. For example, if you are on LinkedIn and someone sends you a curious message offering you the deal of a lifetime, and they have a picture of themselves and their name on their LinkedIn profile, one way to determine whether or not that person is for real or not is simply to right-click on the image and go to search on Google to see if the image they used comes up on the internet and can be verified as being that actual person. Many scammers will simply use random photos from the internet on their profiles, pictures of ducks or astronauts or bankers or dead people. If you discover that someone has done this, this is a serious red flag, and you should avoid the person immediately. Even if the person just decided to use a random photo from the internet, it proves, if nothing else, that they were just too lazy to do the work that was necessary for this kind of transaction. And that in itself is a big red flag. There are numerous scam alert websites around the internet for oil brokers, Russian brokers, Nigerian brokers, and scammers of every stripe. Some of them will be listed at the end of this video and in the description of this video at YouTube and on my profile here at LinkedIn. If a deal sounds too good to be true, it probably is, and it's always a good idea to follow your gut on these matters and look people up and see if you can find anything that's out of sorts about them. It's not enough to just read reviews that badmouth the individual. You need to see if you can locate correlating evidence as well. People leave trails all over the internet. There's no way to hide if you're doing something illegal in this day and age. Part of the problem of being a broker is that many people go into the process afraid of the worst-case scenario, that things are going to fall apart as a result. Very often, we not only create the very demons we fear, but the very outcomes as well. Before you know it, your fears lead to actions which lead to the results which you yourself had hoped to avoid. your own behavior, your lack of interest. Maybe you're having a bad hair day, or your mother-in-law's down your back, or some other failure to follow through correctly in a timely manner can lead to disaster. Your changing attitude as the days wear on waiting for the deal to close often give rise to all kinds of fears. More often, failure to listen contentedly to the possibility that you might actually be wrong in some of your assumptions regarding the deal often leads to problems. These things become self-actualizing, self-engendering, and eventually they become self-exciting. And before you know it, you have created the very thing that you have feared all along. By now, not only are you afraid that something bad is going to happen, but you're afraid because you're afraid. And thus, you're compounding your own fears. And not just your fears, but your resentment that somebody else in the process might have a good idea which is counter to your own. Remember, it's not just you making this deal. The person who may have brought you the deal is just as important as the gatekeeper who informs all the intermediaries, who serves as a vital link to all of the other intermediaries, as is the person who's actually doing the closing of the deal. Every part is vital, and every person's role is worthy of respect. Remember, the deal is the sum total of the people who are taking part in its creation and its execution to the final close. The problem with this is that everyone, especially here in the West, sees themselves as apart from all the others. It is better to be part of a decentralized guild with a singular vision, everyone pulling in the same direction for a collective goal, than to be on a ship of fools, all trying to go in their own direction. As I've said in the first video, the rules are made by the people who produce the products. And in the case of selling a product to someone who's in a buyer's market, the practices are usually standard, such as the sale of gold, for example. And you cannot bend these rules for two primary reasons. One, the seller doesn't want to move mountains of product under conditions which are not ideal. And the buyer will not hit the send button at the bank to transfer money unless they are 100% comfortable with the circumstances under which they are making the purchase. There is a lot of static on the line in internet brokering these days. People are just unable to get through to each other, often for reasons which have to do with basic human frailties, like an unwillingness to listen, or, more importantly, because they do not want to learn the truth about a matter. Many people do not understand their own motives for why they respond the way they do to closing trade deals. Some have mommy and daddy issues. Some are dealing with latent traumas. Others exhibit excessive greediness or stubbornness. And many are just not cut out for the world of international trade, a world grounded in diplomacy and the desire to find a mutual common ground. The last and probably the most important reason that internet trade brokering is not working for you may simply be that internet trade brokering is not for you. Not everyone is cut out for a life on the sea or in military uniform, and it follows that many people are not cut out to be trade brokers. There are too many hotheads in this business who think they can hide behind the internet and be hotheads and succeed, or think they can be hard asses and get away with it. They think they can be first among equals, as it were. Let me tell you something. This is not the Roman Empire, and you are not Julius Caesar. You, as an intermediary, can only be equals in large measure with other intermediaries. It does not matter what role you play among the intermediaries. If you are not the buyer or the seller, you are an intermediary. I can't tell you how many times I have been deeply disappointed by people to whom I gave the benefit of the doubt just long enough for them to disappoint me. And if they're disappointing strangers on the internet, it follows that they are probably doing the same thing to their families and their friends. One problem that I run into far too often is the incidence of trying to do a deal that has too many brokers on it. Too often, I will run into one person who says they are next to the mandate, only to discover that they are next to the mandate. The best thing to do in this scenario is to have your game ready before the game starts, instead of introducing yourself as someone who is next to the mandate. Work out a relationship with the actual mandate and with all the people who brought you to the mandate, and create a IMFPA for all the intermediaries. And then, when you do the deal, put only the mandate and perhaps one other person on the transaction itself. A buyer side paymaster / the mandate, and the seller side paymaster / the mandate for the seller. This alleviates the problem and all the tension that comes with having too many brokers on the deal. Many buyers who look at the fee agreement and see 15 or 20 intermediaries, or even 5 or 6, are likely to bolt like a deer in the headlights. And when they bolt, they will take your commission with them. This is one thing you can do to lessen the likelihood that the deal will be rejected out of hand at the critical juncture. Let me say this. A lot of people come into international trade with sugar plums dancing in their heads, believing that they're going to do a one-and-done trade deal. It's going to be simple. It's going to be easy. They fill their heads with these fantasy notions, like the guy who reads the porno magazine, who thinks the women on the pages are staring back at him, or the guy in that movie who was lying in the booth while the holograms were telling him, "You the man," when in fact he was not the man. He had to go into a booth and have someone tell him he was the man, because nobody would tell him in the real world, because he was a loser. That's one major reason a lot of people get into this business. They can't find solace or success in other areas. But it's not easy. It's easy to get into this business, but it's not easy to succeed in this business. Getting in is easy. Once you're here, you have to put in the blood, the sweat, the tears, and you're going to have to do your time in the trenches, which means you're going to have far more disappointments than successes. Make yourself comfortable with that fact. If you can do that, then you can find some kind of success in this business. In this final video, there is one additional thing that I want to clarify. It is possible that you can do everything right and still lose the deal because someone else failed to do their job. Many deals don't even get past the starting gate because the people bringing those deals to you are in fact bringing nothing but a bucket of steam. They get to the point where they want to talk about commissions ahead of closing the deal, and they want to argue about commissions. They're putting the cart before the horse, and worse, they're putting themselves ahead of everyone else. And this comes from a variety of sources. Some men are very, very macho, and they just have to take up a lot of space in the room, either virtually or literally, and they do this by arguing unnecessarily, bitching and complaining, demanding that the sellers use their procedures when in fact this is not the case, and never is. If you do enough deals, you will come to understand that the sellers make the rules. Once you have come to this understanding, and drop all of your fears, the fears that come from not willing to tell your big fat buyer, "Oh, Mr. Buyer, sir, you're going to have to use the procedures of the seller." If the buyer has any sense at all, any experience in these areas in which they wish to buy a product, then they will know this. And if you tell them, they will respect you all the more. A lot of people use international trade brokering as some sort of avocation, when it could in fact become a career. Those who do best at this work usually adopt several habits. They focus on one product. They're serious about their work. They stick to their guns, and they don't ask for things that are unreasonable. They treat people with respect, and they treat the business that they are in seriously. And when they do this, they will do well. It does not matter who you are or what country you live in. International trade is changing, and the very definition of trade is also changing, opening up new opportunities to make money in a variety of subcategories. You don't have to try to just sell oil or diamonds. You can sell your own native talents, like teaching people to speak your own language, or advising people on the best way to live and work and function and prosper in your region of the world. It should be noted, too many people fail in this business because they don't follow the rules. In this case, understand that if you are not the seller, you must adhere to the seller's rules. Nobody cares who you are or where you have been. What matters is that you are here now. If yesterday you were the seller and today you're the buyer, it's time for you to follow someone else's rules. If you follow not only the rules of business but of good conduct, if you use common sense, if you treat people with respect, you will be blessed. Do these things and you will prosper. I'm Muhammad Bey for the Joker Broker 2 video series. Thank you for listening, and take care.